Have you ever wondered how to visualize the complex interactions between objects within a system? Today, we'll dive into the world of interaction diagrams in Object-Oriented Analysis and Design, or OOAD. Interaction diagrams are a key component of the Unified Modeling Language, more commonly known as UML. They are primarily used in OOAD to specify and visualize how objects interact within a system. By capturing the dynamic aspects of a system, these diagrams emphasize the flow of control and data among the components. They are absolutely critical when it comes to detailing complex operations and behaviors in a system, especially those that involve multiple objects. Now, there are two main types of interaction diagrams: sequence diagrams and communication diagrams. Both types represent the same information, but they do it in different formats. The choice between them often depends on the specific needs of the analysis or the preferences of the designer. Let's start with sequence diagrams. These diagrams show how objects communicate with each other in terms of a sequence of messages. The primary focus here is on the time sequence of messages and interactions. They are ideal for detailing specific scenarios, such as the processing of a transaction or the sequence of events in a use case, and are incredibly helpful in identifying and optimizing the interactions and dependencies between objects. On the other hand, communication diagrams, previously known as collaboration diagrams, focus on the relationships and interactions among objects organized in a graph or network format. They are better suited for understanding all the interactions between a group of objects and are particularly useful when the relationships or the arrangement of components is as important as the sequence of the messaging. With the right diagrams in hand, even the most intricate system interactions can be understood and optimized. First, let's explore sequence diagrams, where the emphasis lies on the time sequence of messages and interactions. A sequence diagram is a type of interaction diagram that focuses on the order of the interaction sequences. It's all about timing. But what makes up this type of diagram? Primarily, we have 5 key components. The first component is the lifelines. These represent objects or participants in the interaction. Think of them as the main characters in our little play. Then, we have activation boxes. These show when an object is active in an interaction, sort of like our characters stepping into the spotlight. Next up are messages. These depict interaction between lifelines and can be synchronous, like a phone call where you immediately get a response, or asynchronous, like sending a signal or a letter and waiting for a reply. Fourthly, we have returns. These are optional notations showing data being returned after a message is processed. Think of it as getting a receipt after making a purchase. Lastly, we have frames. These enclose interactions with a label to indicate looping, conditional execution, or breakpoints. It's like a director's cut showing us where to repeat a scene, where to make choices, or where to take a break. So, why use sequence diagrams? Well, they're ideal for detailing specific scenarios, such as the processing of a transaction or the sequence of events in a use case. They are like storyboards, breaking down complex interactions into a step-by-step process. Moreover, sequence diagrams are helpful in identifying and optimizing the interactions and dependencies between objects. They allow us to see where we can streamline our processes and make our system more efficient. In the grand scheme of things, sequence diagrams are a powerful tool in the toolbox of object-oriented analysis and design. They provide a clear visual representation of how objects in a system interact, making them an invaluable resource for developers and designers alike. So, that's the gist of sequence diagrams, a powerful tool for visualizing and optimizing object interactions over time. Now we move on to communication diagrams, which focus on the relationships and interactions among objects. Like a friendly neighborhood, communication diagrams map out the intricate network of interactions and relationships among objects. Picture a bustling community, each member with their part to play, their lines to deliver. This is the essence of communication diagrams, telling the story of how objects communicate in a system. Let's break it down. First, we have the objects, the key players. They're usually shown as labeled icons or boxes, kind of like name tags at a social gathering. Next are the links, the invisible threads that connect these objects. They're the lines on the diagram that indicate messages can be sent between objects, kind of like the roads and paths connecting houses in a neighborhood. But how do we know who speaks first or who responds? That's where message labels come in. These are like the script of our little play, annotating the links with numbers to show the sequence of messages. They are the directors, guiding the flow of conversation, dictating who says what and when. Now, why all this fuss about communication diagrams? Well, they're like the bird's eye view of a city, giving us a comprehensive understanding of all the interactions between a group of objects. They're especially handy when the relationships or the arrangement of components is as important as the sequence of the messaging. Imagine trying to understand the dynamics of a bustling city by focusing only on one street at a time. It would be like trying to piece together a puzzle without the full picture. Communication diagrams give us that full picture, showing us how all the parts fit together. They're also useful for visualizing concurrent processes, where multiple operations can happen at the same time. Think of it as a bustling city where different activities are happening simultaneously, yet all contributing to the overall functioning of the city. And that's communication diagrams for you, a great way to understand the overall picture of object interactions and relationships in a system. You might be wondering, when exactly should I use these diagrams? Well, there's no one-size-fits-all answer, but there are certain scenarios where interaction diagrams can prove especially beneficial. Firstly, think about designing complex functionalities. Interaction diagrams are particularly useful when you're dealing with systems or functionalities that involve multiple objects interacting in intricate ways. They provide a visual aid, making it easier to understand how objects are interacting and helping you design systems that are more efficient and effective. Secondly, interaction diagrams are great for refining requirements. They offer a visual representation of how system components will fulfill specific business processes. This can help you to clarify and refine your requirements, ensuring that your system does exactly what it needs to do. Next, consider enhancing communication. Interaction diagrams are not just for developers. They're also a powerful tool for communication among various stakeholders, including designers, business analysts, and even clients. By providing a clear visual representation of interactions, these diagrams can help everyone understand the system better, ensuring that everyone is on the same page. Lastly, interaction diagrams can serve as a tool for debugging and optimization. They can help you identify any unnecessary or inefficient interactions and dependencies. By visualizing these, you can easily spot areas where you can streamline your processes, making your system more efficient. So whether you're designing a new system, refining the requirements of an existing one, trying to improve communication among your team, or looking to optimize your processes, interaction diagrams can be an invaluable tool. But how do you decide which type of interaction diagram to use? That depends on the specifics of your scenario. If the sequence of interactions is of prime importance, a sequence diagram would be your best bet. But if the relationships or the arrangement of components is as important as the sequence of the messaging, then a communication diagram would be more appropriate. Remember, the right diagram at the right time can be a game changer in your OOAD journey. Finally, let's discuss how to develop these interaction diagrams. The first step is identifying scenarios. This involves basing your diagrams on specific use cases or scenarios that are critical to the system's functionality. Think about what the system needs to do, how it should respond to certain inputs, and what outcomes are expected. The second step is determining the objects. You'll need to list the objects involved in the scenario, typically based on the domain model. These objects could be anything from users and servers to software components or data structures. Next, we define the interactions. Here, you'll specify the sequence of messages exchanged between the objects to fulfill the scenario. Consider what each object needs to do and when it needs to do it. You'll also need to think about whether the messages are synchronous, meaning they require a response before the next message can be sent, or asynchronous, where messages are sent without waiting for a response. Lastly, you'll choose the right diagram. This will depend on the clarity and complexity of the interactions. Sequence diagrams are ideal for detailing specific scenarios and time sequences, while communication diagrams are better for understanding interactions between a group of objects. With these steps, you're well equipped to create your own interaction diagrams. So, we've covered a lot today about interaction diagrams in OOAD. We delved into sequence and communication diagrams, each with its unique approach to visualizing object interactions. We explored when to use these diagrams, be it for debugging, refining requirements, or enhancing communication. Lastly, we discussed how to develop them, from identifying scenarios to choosing the right diagram. Remember, understanding system interactions is a fundamental part of OOAD, and these diagrams are your best friends in this endeavor. Until next time, keep exploring and learning.